I've been able to effectively banish all filler words from my speech, with some exceptions, by employing 3 techniques that have helped me adjust the way that I think through processing my words and audit my sentences for likes, you knows, ands, buts, and any unnecessary conjunction or what are often called buffer words, words that we default to in pauses as we buffer in our train of thought. The first technique that has made a noticeable difference is to focus on processing the endings of your words. When you focus on finishing the end of your words, I don't always do this to the fullest extent that I could be practicing this, but just being more conscious of the endings of your words redirects your focus from simply outputting a scattershot of ideas to being more aware about the individual words that you're using to compose your sentences with. Why is this important? And how does this help eliminate and prune filler words from your speech? It does so because it allows you to direct your focus more onto your word choice. When you're focused on your word choice, you are more cognizant of the empty spaces and the words that you employ in your speaking. Process the endings of your words, or at least be more aware of the individual words that you speak. Especially if you focus on the endings, you tend to visualize the last 3 or the last 2 letters of the word that you're uttering. And this allows you more time to focus on the words and less time to employ with filler words. The second practice that I've incorporated into my speaking is to embrace silence. This is easier said than done, I realize that, but embracing silence and being comfortable with the pause and recognizing the utility in not speaking has done wonders in convincing my internal self to embrace the lack of a filler word. The reason why filler words are often referred to as buffer words or crutch words is because we are uncomfortable with silence. We're convinced that a pause is somehow letting down the expectation that's been created in the atmosphere of our communication or conversation. For example, if we're conversing with a conversation partner, if we're not speaking, there is a lack of our contribution to the conversation, and we intuitively have to fill that space with something, because if we were the one who are speaking last, it sort of falls on us. The burden is on our shoulder to continue populating the air with noise. That is false. We need to uproot that belief in our mind and convince ourselves that silence is often more powerful than words. And once you can realize that pausing, allowing yourself time to recollect your thoughts, to order your words, is an advantage, you're unstoppable when it comes to conversing. And one tip that I was given by a communication coach was to focus on forcefully employing pauses in your speaking to get comfortable with that silence. It's not an easy task to do at first. You have to intentionally pause and often extend that pause for an uncomfortable duration in order to acclimate yourself to that empty space in the conversation. And the more you do that, the more you become comfortable with that practice, and the more it becomes the practice that you default to as an alternative to and or extending the word as a alternative to using a filler word. For example, I might end a sentence with something like extending the word. That was an example. That wasn't me employing a filler word, although I'm sure I have already done that in this video. The third behavior that I want to share with you is less practical as the last 2 have been, and more focused on mindset. And that is to value your audience, value your listener, value your conversation partner. If you value them, and what I mean by valuing them is being a servant to them in conversation. Now, this is not a formula or a template that you have to apply to every environment or scenario, I understand that there are relationship conversations, there are business-oriented conversations, there is simply you being social. But understanding that your focus is on them, it's not on you. When our focus is on us and we're nervous and anxious, that's where we tend to be very self-conscious. We get inside our own head, and that's when we start to employ filler words. That correlation is not something that most people are able to connect the dots between. When you're focused on yourself, there is a exponentially more probable chance that you're going to employ filler words in your speech, versus if you're focused on the other person, you're focused on making what you want to communicate as a thought into words understandable to them, you're less likely to stumble and stutter and employ all of the host of filler words that exist in your sentences. The mindset shift here is understanding that you should be valuing your audience. And again, the simple way to translate that is you're focused on them. You are trying to be a messenger for your idea. And when your focus is on giving them a good time in the conversation, and that can be interpreted in many ways, the most simple way to digest that is just trying to be a good communicator, not rushing through your sentences. And this is something I've tried to reflect on more in my own speaking behaviors, and I'm going to try to be conscious of this right now. I have the tendency to speak very rapidly, and my mouth often gets ahead of my mind. Slowing down, being more intentional with your words allows you to, number one, process the endings of those words. Number two, embrace silence and employ silence more intentionally. And finally, it allows you to be a servant to your audience with what you speak. Hope that was able to help in some significant way.